prevented huge, massive layoffs of government workers. He prevented massive layoffs of workers because he gave the tools. Should he be recalled? Okay, he did what he said he was going to do. Should a man of integrity be recalled? Okay, they want to do a do-over. The special interests want to do a do-over. Even though Act 10 is working, they want to do a do-over. Should we have a do-over just because they want a do-over? They want the power? No. Okay, so then we're all going to have to make sure we work as hard as we can, like Waukesha County and Washington County and Ozaukee County. We had such huge turnouts in the primary election. We're all going to have to work that hard and harder to get the victory on June 5th. Are you going to do that? Yeah. Okay, I want you to welcome our governor, an innovator, a man of his word, a leader, Scott Walker.
Good morning. It's good to be back in Green Bay. Did you have a good time last night? Enjoy a good old-fashioned fish fry. We enjoyed being there with you, and it's good to see so many friends from across the state. And we enjoy seeing you not only here, but back in your hometowns, and we'll keep coming back between now and June 5th, and even more after. If God willing, you give me the honor to continue to serve as your governor. I'll keep coming back over and over and over again and standing with the taxpayers of Wisconsin. First off, we get asked all the time, how do you put up with all this? And Tonette and I and our sons, Matt and Alex, who are here with us right now, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate your prayers. Because I got to tell you, not only at Republican events, not at campaign events, but at factories and farms and small businesses all across the state, every day I bump into people that come off the line at a factory, that come up to me at a farm I'm visiting or small business and say, Governor, I just want to let you know, me and my family were praying for you. And that just means the world to us. So thank you all, for those of you who said that for us. In a moment, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we've been, where we're going, most importantly, how we're going to move this thing forward. But on the eve of Mother's Day, I want to pay tribute to three mothers who had an inspiration of my life. My grandmother, my mother, and my wife, Tonette, the mother of our two sons. I think about my grandmother, as David and I called her Nana, and for her, she certainly plays a role, even though it's been a few years since she's been with us. She passed away in 2008, and well into her 90s. And I think about my grandmother, and in many ways I thought about her a lot over the past year. You see, my grandparents, I think about the only thing they ever bought on credit was the mortgage on their farm. Everything else they paid for in cash. They saved up for it. They saved up for it, and then they made the purchase. They didn't do it the other way around. And it's interesting, my grandmother became a widow in 1974 when my grandfather passed away from a heart attack, and throughout all that time, 34 years after that, she worked a whole assortment of different odd jobs, from stuffing inserts into newspapers at the daily newspaper in town where she was living, to spending time as an Avon lady and babysitting kids. She did all sorts of things to pay the bills. But along the way, she always had a little bit of money saved up for my brother and I, and she'd help us. Remember, as kids, we used to have those binders that would open up and we put the little dimes in to save up the bank. We got that from our grandmother. She taught us that. My grandfather must have had a little bit of one of those midlife crises. Right before he passed in 1974, he bought one of those brand new Dodge Chargers. We used to call it, my brother and I said, it looked kind of like a banana because it was yellow and it had a little loop. And my grandmother was so frugal, she decided after my grandfather passed, she wasn't going to trade it in. She figured she'd get use out of it. And I got to tell you, the funniest thing was when David and I would go to McDonald's with her, which, by the way, I swear she had so many coupons, I think they paid us to eat there. She'd be driving over to McDonald's from the other side of town, and she'd be in that Dodge Charger, and we'd pull up to the stoplight, and there'd be a guy in a young little car come up next to us, you know, looking in thinking, hey, you got a Hemi in there? And there we'd see this little old lady with her hair bonnet down behind that steering wheel. But for her, she thought David and I weren't anything. Don't spend money you don't have. And that's something I've tried to apply to the taxpayers' money, not just to my own money. My parents are here today, and I think of my mother as well. And she grew up with my grandparents. She was the only child. They grew up on a farmhouse where my kids sometimes find it hard to believe that they didn't have indoor plumbing until my mother went off to high school. And so she learned, and she passed on to me and David, you know, don't take things for granted. Be thankful for what you have. And along the way, my mother my father's a minister, has been a great influence on my life, long since retired, but still keeps ministering. But my mother, my dad was a pastor, my mother was a saint, still is today. Many of you have probably been the beneficiaries of these victory offices. My mom loves traveling around the state and bringing chocolate chip cookies. They're the best out there. They're pretty good. Every time people have it. And melt your mouth. You can only imagine when David and I were kids in sports, everybody on my football team, on the basketball team, on the track team always wanted to know when your mother's cookies were going to get on the bus, so everybody would hoard around us. But she loved that, not just for David and I, she loved caring for others. She loved reaching out, caring for others, and whether it was that, or taking pictures, not just of the family, but of friends, and passing those on. And along the way, probably the most inspirational thing she got from my grandmother was sending notes, not just to family and friends, but many times to people she hardly ever met. And she felt called by God to send them a note of encouragement along the way. More than anything, she taught to me the importance of respecting others. And when I found that's important this year more than ever, that you respect others, even if they don't always respect you, that's an important lesson I learned from my mother and carrying on until today. And then I think of Tonette, the mother of our children. On May 1st, 1992, 20 years ago, Tonette and I had our first date. We met at St. Asaph, but our first date was at the Chancery in the village of Wauwatosa. After spending a good long time over dinner and getting some custard later, a couple other stops before the night ended, I got to the point where I learned so much about her. I knew that night I was going to marry Tonette. It took her a couple months to figure that out, but I'm thankful we made that work. But in that one night, I learned about the incredible courage that Tonette had then, and I see even more so today. You see, for all the things that she's done throughout her life, it's amazing. A lot of people don't know this, but her first husband, Bob, died after many years of a terminal illness. About the same time, her brother, Dickie, her only sibling, died of bone marrow cancer. That would set anybody back, but she didn't give up. That night, I knew God had called me to be her partner for the rest of our lives. And I'm so thankful every day that God has continued to give me that blessing and to bless us abundantly, not just with that marriage and partnership, but two beautiful sons who are now young men, Matthew and Alex, who are here as well. That courage has been so apparent to me throughout the years. You see, about a decade ago, she decided she was going to leave the private sector world of business and instead decided to join the nonprofit world. Took on a new task of working for the American Diabetes Association. And a few years later, unfortunately, her mother, my mother-in-law, was diagnosed with a brain tumor. She left her work at the Diabetes Association and couldn't have seen a more tender caregiver for her mother during those tough times that she suffered through that brain cancer. Then after her mother passed, she went back and felt called again to come to the nonprofit world and worked at the American Lung Association, where she's still up today. Each and every day of my life, I've seen the incredible courage that Tonette has shown in my life and in the life she had even before meeting me. That has been an inspiration to me and to our sons, and hopefully is an inspiration to you as well. So from those three mothers makes up a lot of who I am and who I've been and hopefully who I will be again in the future. Who knew on January 3rd of 2011, though, that I need that courage that I mentioned that inspired me through Tonette? I needed it at quite the level we've needed it over the past year and a half. See, on January 3rd, when I took the oath of office, I invoked a part of our state's constitution that's never been amended, never been altered. It's a part that talks about the proper role of government in our life, not of conservative or liberal, Republican or Democrat, but of simply this: it says, moderation and frugality in government leads to freedom and prosperity for our people. You see, all the way back to 1848, just months before we became the 30th state in the Union, our founders had it right. Moderation and frugality in government leads to freedom and prosperity for our people, and that is what we're standing up for. It's more freedom and prosperity for all the people of Wisconsin. But when we first took office, that was at risk. You see, this state faced both a fiscal and an economic crisis of proportions we had hardly ever seen before. And we couldn't wait. The people of this state demanded that we take action to tackle that fiscal and economic crisis, and we tackled it right away, working with the new legislative majorities in the Senate and the Assembly. We didn't wait a year or 6 months or even a month. We started acting on it the very first day we took office, because if you were the CEO of a company in trouble, you wouldn't wait to take action to save your company. You'd start acting on it the very first day you took over. That's what we've done, that's what we're doing, and that's what we're going to continue to do if you give us the chance after June 5th. And that's important, you know, because as moms and dads, we look at kids like my son's back now, and so we want to make sure they grow up in a state where they've got a job, where they have an opportunity to have a job in this state and not move somewhere else, not move beyond our borders, but stay in Wisconsin where they can get employment, they can raise a family, they can someday help us as we retire. They can do all those things in the future. We needed to take action immediately to make sure that their future was even greater than ours. And the good news is it's working, but we're not done yet. We're not done yet. We've got plenty more to do to get this state working again. Think about it. In the 3 years before we took office in 2008, 2009, and 2010, under Jim Doyle's leadership, Wisconsin lost 150,000 private sector jobs and an unemployment rate top 9%. We don't want to go back to those days. We don't want to go backwards. Instead, we charted a course to lead the state forward. After all that job loss, we've had 15,600 new jobs in the first 3 months of this year alone, and our unemployment rate is down to the lowest it's been since 2008. We're turning things around. We're heading in the right direction. We're moving Wisconsin forward. Today, I want to reaffirm to you our commitment to help not the government, but the people of Wisconsin create 250,000 new jobs by 2015. It's a commitment I made in the campaign the first time. It's a commitment I make today. And by 2015, with your help, it's a commitment we'll see fulfilled for the betterment of all the people of Wisconsin. You see, we built the foundation for success. I was reminded of that last night. Last night I was over, like many of you, in the hallowed ground of Lambeau Field. And as we walked in, I walked past 4 great trophies. 4 trophies named after one of the, not only Green Bay or Wisconsin's greatest heroes, but America's greatest heroes, Coach Vince Lombardi. People think about him and they think about success. But people often forget. And the year before